Conrad, the branding, where the branding comes from. And then the second element of that is Forbes. And as we all strive to be ranked by Forbes, which is no easy feat, we have incredible training, again, support from Forbes, from our directors of training and quality in the HR department, and how we can continue to raise the bar and provide truly five-star service to our guests.
Hello, my name is Renae Leith-Manos. Welcome to this podcast, Where to From Here, featuring conversations about luxury travel and how it's changing in every pocket of the globe.
So, Cara, welcome to the show. It is so exciting to be talking to you from New York. Now, tell us, what's the feeling in the luxury industry there? I mean, I'm sitting in Asia, as you know, and here in Asia, over 100 new luxury hotels are opening in the next 2 years. 50 of those will be in China. So there's a real buzz here. There's a real feeling of progression and growth, and it's really exciting. So take us through New York and what's happening there right now.
Absolutely. I mean, those are tremendous numbers in Asia, and we are seeing similar effects in New York City specifically. The demand for luxury travelers has grown over time, and people want incredible service. They want the comfort and safety that a luxury hotel provides. And if they're going to spend money, they want to spend it and really, truly enjoy themselves. So we've seen a tremendous amount of growth, not only in New York City, but the states as a whole. Specifically in the city, we've seen a huge influx of the amount of rooms that are being built, and NYC's governance and boards have really allowed for developers to come in. So it's an exciting time to be here and an exciting time to be a traveler on what's in the horizon.
And where are the travelers coming from right now to New York?
We see a lot of travelers coming from international destinations. I would say the only places we're not seeing travelers come from an international perspective are where those countries have restrictions and they aren't allowing their travelers out. But it really runs the gamut from Asia to Europe to Australia. We're seeing a tremendous amount of domestic travel too. People who maybe haven't been back to the city in the last few years are excited to return.
Yeah, I can understand. And tell us about, there's quite a few new hotels being built with apartments. I think Aman just opened recently there, which is really radical, right? Because then Aman is normally in a coastal, formerly Asian sort of location, very tranquil. And so for them to open a property in New York is a shock, let alone a property with permanent apartments. So what is this trend? Because we're seeing a lot of it. The Dorchester are doing it in the Middle East, in London. Tell us about that trend.
With people who are interested in having pied-à-terres, it makes sense for the hotel to have that residential component. We're actually seeing the same thing with our Waldorf New York, our flagship property, which will be opening up in the near future. And just like you mentioned with Aman as well, it seems to be, the consumers are driving that trend. It's something that they're interested in. Developers are listening, and then they're able to create a product that makes sense for both them having hotel guests and also that residential component for people who are in and out of the city pretty frequently.
And is it, I mean, traditionally, the London-New York route is one of the most popular and busiest in the world because so many people do business in both countries on a regular basis. And, there are many travelers. I know when I spoke to the Carlisle, they talked about, having people every week, from London coming to stay at that property. Is that the reason that some of these people want pied-à-terres? Is work business driving it, do you think?
Absolutely. I think business travel is a huge driver in New York. We're seeing less of the quick 1-2 day stopovers, and we're seeing international, specifically travelers come in for 3-4 days. They're having multiple meetings back to back, which makes sense. So they're not traveling every week necessarily. They're traveling for a longer period of time. Ultimately, the same number of room nights, just a little bit more condensed as opposed to spread out over time. And we've also seen a lot of people coming into the city who are employees, heavy on the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, that midweek. And then they're having business travel meetings meet them for those midweek days. So we're seeing a tremendous amount of that. On the leisure side, people want space. They're sick of being cooped up and they want space. We see that at Conrad New York Midtown a tremendous amount. We have really spacious suite accommodations and people rave about them. At Conrad New York Downtown, we see actually something similar. All of our rooms are suite products and there's 2 separate spaces and people love that for families. So even on the leisure side, they do like that apartment feel. And it is something that can then take over the later part of the week, the weekend, the Thursday to Sunday time period.
Fantastic. And you're the complex director for Conrad New York Downtown. Now, I've never come across that term. It's not something we see in Asia. So what does that mean? And what's your role? And how did you end up in luxury hotels?
Great question. So yes, I'm the complex director of Conrad New York Downtown and Conrad New York Midtown, actually. So the reason it's called complex is there's these two incredible properties that have a lot of similarities, some differences, of course, too. But the role is that there's a complex facility. There's two properties, so it's a little bit of a tricky title. But the role kind of developed as I developed in New York City. I had originally came from Fort Lauderdale. I was with the Four Seasons prior. I was with Conrad Fort Lauderdale Beach. I opened that property and then came to New York, which is where I'm from, and was able to expand in my role. And now I oversee two of our wonderful luxury properties. I have always loved travel, and I think I really got bit by the travel bug when I was studying abroad. I went to Florence for 5 months during college and absolutely loved being in a new destination, exploring new places. And I knew right then and there that's not only what I wanted to do for fun, that was my passion, it was what I wanted my career to be. And as a college student on a budget, I can't say that I had so many luxury experiences, but as I kind of came into my own and developed and understood what a luxury experience was, I couldn't imagine not living and traveling and breathing that. And I think being able to represent and work in that space, I'm so fortunate and so lucky. You could be representing a brand, a hand sanitizer, a chapstick, but I get to talk about people who stay at a hotel where their dreams are made, they save up, they have unbelievable lifelong memories made. I just can't think of anything better.
Yeah, it's wonderful. And one of your major roles is branding, which is what you're alluding to. So take us behind the scenes and explain, how do you brand a luxury hotel? How do you create the DNA of a luxury hotel?
It's such a great question. And I think the DNA of every hotel looks a little bit different, but there definitely is a formula. How do we make this work? At Hilton, we talk a lot about positioning, and especially with our luxury properties. How do we position ourselves in the market? And more importantly, in a luxury space, how do we position ourselves to a group business traveler, to a leisure traveler, to family, to romantic getaway? Because we don't want to be everything to everyone, and that's not what a luxury property is. However, of the markets that we target and our demographics, we have specific branding and positioning. And I love to say that partnerships weaves really well into that. We want to make sure we're creating an environment that guests have to book now, that guests are enjoying themselves when they're on property, and a surprise and delight moment. Wow, I wasn't expecting this, but now I'm getting it. And this is why I choose a luxury hotel in that experience. So when considering branding, I always say those are the three most important factors. And then secondarily, like I mentioned, we want to hit on them in each market.
Before you go on, those three factors, like, do you aim for every guest to experience that during their stay, whether it's 1 night or 5 nights, or how do you fit all that in?
Absolutely. So first and foremost, luxury service, we always want to surprise and delight. So whether that be a 1-night stay, a 5-night stay, a 3-week stay, absolutely. And that can be as simple as greeting you by your name, thanking you for being a Hilton Honors member, delivering something during turn down. Maybe it's a meditation balm or a lovely scent, or putting your slippers exactly where you like them. So that we aim for every single guest. We do have activations at the property from time to time, and we space them out. So hopefully that every guest can be touched. It doesn't always happen that way, but it is a goal of ours for sure. And that's really key to the branding elements. And then we have these grandiose, incredible offerings that we use to draw people in. We're different. These are our unique selling principles. So those are ongoing. And some of those can be timely. For example, a Pride package or a Mother's Day offering.
Package? A what package?
A Pride package.
Okay, what's Pride? What's that?
So right now New York City is a great home and friend to the LGBTQ plus community.
Right.
And we have packages during the Pride weekend that are accommodating, that have kind of a fun spin to coming to the city to celebrate Pride. So we have different offerings like that. Timely, Pride weekend later in June, Mother's Day weekend, Labor Day weekend, specific holidays, shopping weekend, Christmas, things like that. And then we also have some more evergreen things. So we have a Summer in the City escape package right now that will entice people who have families to come in. They want to go to museums. They want to have cultural experiences. They want to take care of their kids. We did an incredible art partnership with Hall de Lumières at Conrad New York downtown that spoke to the art lover. And that extended for a 6-month time period where guests could book this incredible suite, which was transformed into a Clint, which is an incredible artist who was featured at this Hall de Lumières exhibit. And they could come get tickets and be immersed in the art in their room too. So depending on how and what we're doing, there's always something that could be appealing to the guest and that larger, bigger positioning, branding element.
Wow, it's fascinating. And so you must have an annual calendar with all of this stuff on there, right?
We absolutely have an annual calendar. And I like to say that when one month ends, we're planning for the month that is going to happen a year later. So I like to say people call it a rolling 12. I call it a rolling 13. So in December, I'm planning for November of the next year. I think it's really important to stay ahead. And that's what guests are also how they plan their time and their travel. And I want to make sure that we're meeting their needs.
Fantastic. It's so interesting. And how has social media changed the hotel marketing and branding that you're talking about? And how does that work in practical terms for the hotels or the complex like yours?
Such a great question. I think social media sometimes can elicit really dramatic reactions. People are like, oh God, or, oh, I love social media. It's very polarizing. I like to remind people that you don't have to participate on every social media channel. You can be a Facebook person. You can be an Instagram person, a LinkedIn person. So pick your poison is what I like to say. And we appeal to different guests or customers or users on those platforms. So Facebook is maybe a little bit of an older generation. We do some of our package promotions, like a summer escape that we're promoting there. Instagram is more that dreaming pictorial, of course, right? It's all images. So we'll work with influencers who will capture the content and embody what a stay is on their channels and leverage it on ours. And then LinkedIn to more of the business guest. And how do we reach the, as we were just discussing, the traveler who's coming in for meetings Tuesday through Thursday. So I think social media has absolutely shifted the way not only people travel, people find out about travel, people get excited about dreaming about travel. You could be sitting in New York City and looking at pictures of the Maldives and dreaming about being there, or vice versa. And it's a really important aspect of not only marketing, but hotels today.
100%. And what we're seeing here in Asia and Australia is that often the Gen Y will actually get a picture from social media, say a bath with rose petals in it, and actually turn up at the hotel and say, my bath doesn't face that direction. I had a different color rose petals. Like they actually want to replicate down to the absolute finite detail, the imagery of, say, that they're seeing on, say, Instagram or somewhere. Are you seeing similar kind of habits and similar demands from the younger traveler, the younger luxury traveler coming to New York?
Renae, it's so funny you're asking that question because today we received a message, and if I don't read it, you won't believe me. We had posted a picture of an influencer with floral petals in their tub that overlooks Central Park. It's stunning. And the user on Instagram sent us that image and wrote, "What is this service listed under? I would like to book." And today, just today, we got that request that the guest wanted to have a floral arrangement bathtub, which is absolutely incredible timing that we're discussing this. So to answer your question, yes, we are seeing, kind of back to what we were just discussing, social media play into that. But even furthermore, we are seeing guests who want these really unbelievable over-the-top experiences. I think that in some resort destinations, guests may be slightly more demanding. So we don't necessarily see people who say, I want a different room, my tub looks differently. But we are seeing people who want to replicate those Instagrammable moments that we have online, or who want to have their own vision and create something and transform the space in their own way.
Well, it's in the detail. That's what we're seeing. It's no longer, I want to book the presidential suite. It's, I want to book, the presidential suite. I want the one that faces there. I want the, it's all about detail. I want the certain chocolates, not the ones with caramel, the ones with nuts. It's pretty demanding on hotels, right?
You can say yes, but for what our guests are paying and the expectations that they have, we understand. I would want everything to be perfect if I was paying the rates that we have, that all luxury hotels have. And one of the great kind of elements of our Conrad DNA brand is service that's passionately delivered by our team. You have to have a hospitality heart to be in the hotel industry. You have to want to serve people. And we have an unbelievable team at both hotels, and they enjoy creating those special moments. Caramel chocolates, you got it. Chocolates with almonds, but not walnuts, absolutely. Whatever it may be, it really is our pleasure. And that's why we enjoy having guests, and why we are high occupancy, why we have repeat guests. It is our thank you to be able to serve guests in that way.
And can I just say, that's the wonderful thing about America. You know, even just hearing you talk, that level of detail you don't find very often in places like Asia, and you certainly don't find it in Australia. So there is something to be said for American, you know, 5-star luxury hotels, I have to say. and
that's wonderful to hear.
Yeah, and you've worked at different luxury brands, Four Seasons, you're now at Conrad Hilton. How different are the marketing campaigns and concepts with the different brands? How do you differentiate it? I mean, you know, when you shift your role and you go to a different brand, how then do you click into that brand and that client for that brand?
It's a great question. And I'm going to even extrapolate further and saying that I've been with resort properties in Florida, and I've been with urban destination hotels now in New York City, all in the luxury space. So there are elements of similarity, but I think the most important thing that you need to step into the guest's shoes, and whether that be flip-flops because it's a resort, or, you know, Louboutins as they walk down the streets of Fifth Avenue, you have to step into the guest's shoes. And that's really the differentiator. Each hotel brand, whether it be Hilton, where there's Waldorf and LXR and Conrad and multiple brands under the same umbrella, or Four Seasons, they have their own identity, and guests know that. Guests are attracted to that identity. It's very rare that you'll see a guest who says, oh, I stayed at this hotel and I stay at this hotel, and they have completely different identities. So in that way, it can be easier to market. It's region specific. However, like I said, Conrad has a very specific DNA. So we're not the Waldorf. It's not this older opulent luxury. It's the more modern luxury. Art and design is a huge element. Experiences with impact, people who want to come to a destination and leave their own footprint and feel good about their stay. That's kind of who we attracted at Conrad, which is a little bit different than a Four Seasons or a Waldorf or an Aman or whatever other luxury property they're
And when someone, it's really interesting, Cara, and when someone comes to work at Conrad Hilton, how do they learn that really quickly? Is there an induction program of sorts that every, you know, senior staff member goes through?
Absolutely. And we have tremendous HR training departments. We have tremendous support from Forbes. We have tremendous support from our department heads, and each property has a director of training and quality. And their entire role is not only to help the team member have the right, the necessary things they need to do their job, and that includes knowledge, not just actual materials, but also an understanding of the brand. So before you are going to get ingrained in your role, you're going to get a full overview of all of Hilton history, Conrad, the branding, where the branding comes from. And then the second element of that is Forbes. And as we all strive to be ranked by Forbes, which is no easy feat, we have incredible training, again, support from Forbes, from our directors of training and quality in the HR department, and how we can continue to raise the bar and provide truly 5-star service to our guests.
So just explain to some of our listeners who may not know what Forbes is, because it's massive in the US, but it's not so big in Europe, and particularly not in Asia.
Absolutely. So Forbes is actually a media bureau, and they have a travel aspect or travel team within Forbes. And there, you'll hear a lot of the times a 4-star, 5-star hotel, 3-star hotel. And typically people think they're referring to a Forbes rating similar to a Michelin star, where there is a rating system. But oftentimes people are actually only referring to Google ratings or TripAdvisor ratings or whatever it may be in stars. So Forbes has extremely rigorous standards, and ultimately it's so that the guest has the best possible experience. Whether that's making sure that the guest's name is used, they have a tour of their room, they have turn down service, their folio is presented. There's a whole slew of kind of standards is what we call them, that the guest doesn't even know they're experiencing, but at the team member level, we're delivering so that the guest has the best possible experience. And reaching 5 stars is an absolutely honor. It's truly an accomplishment. And then there's a 4-star rating, which is, again, no easy feat and truly an accomplishment and great, great honor. And then there's recommended, which is after the 4-star category. So it kind of is the 5-star, the 4-star, and then that recommended group.
So if I get on their website, I can look on there and see those categories and choose a hotel to stay in. That's really the idea.
Absolutely. And that's a great way for a luxury traveler to discover maybe new brands, understanding they're going to get same great service. It may be a little different, tailored to the hotel chain itself, but they're going to get this same great service by going to that Forbes guide and seeing what different properties are ranked at.
Fantastic. And just stretching out, with an overview of the whole industry in the US, what major challenges do you feel the luxury hotel industry is facing into the future?
That's a fantastic question. I think there's a lot that as a world grown leaps and bounds from where we are in terms of the flight paths and making sure that there are connecting flights from whatever region to the US or to New York in this case. I would say a top challenge would be meeting an expectation where there has been a revised way of doing things. So some guests who maybe haven't traveled in 2 or 3 years and they're expecting to have something similar to pre-COVID, and it's just not the way that things are anymore. And there's elements of, and I know you and I have talked about this, Renae, elements of sustainability that are more prevalent than ever that sometimes luxury travelers don't expect. So it's not a disappointment. It just takes a little bit of education. We're doing this because it's good for our planet. We changed our amenity partner, for example, to Byredo because they're clean and cruelty-free. And there's elements of sustainability woven into their brand, which align better with our brand. So if you haven't stayed at a Conrad for 3 years and you're not used to this amenity, you may have some questions. So I would say that education piece is the challenge for luxury hotels.
Yeah, interesting. I know Conrad here in Bali, they have introduced the Byredo products within the bathrooms, which is one of their big, you're probably doing a similar thing there. So
yes.
Is it an international program, that one?
It is an international rollout. Yeah. Each of the hotel chains have gone through some kind of shift. And what's really nice about Conrad is each property can pick from a selection of scents. So there's a few that you may see in different properties, but it really speaks to the own hotel and how they feel that scent relates to their hotel.
And what about you personally? When you travel, do you want to stay in luxury and see what other people are doing? Do you go back to basics? And where do you like to travel to, Cara?
I have to say I do like to travel luxury. There's nothing wrong with that back to basics, but it's an industry I live, I breathe, I work in, and I also want to enjoy it. I'm probably not the best person to travel with because I notice everything, and my boyfriend could attest to that. And he'll even say now, "How did that front desk person do?" Or I know how that front desk person did when they checked us in. So definitely enjoyed that luxury travel experience. I mentioned I studied abroad in Florence. It's my absolute favorite place in the whole world. I actually had a trip planned for next month, and it's going to have to be postponed to next year. But the Waldorf Cavalieri in Rome is my absolute favorite hotel in the world.
Wow. Sounds amazing. Have you stayed there?
I have stayed there. It's absolutely stunning. And if anybody has an opportunity to check it out, it's about 15 minutes outside the city. It overlooks all of Rome. It's incredible. You truly feel like you're in a whole new world. The lobby is an art gallery. It's everything you would want out of Italy, out of Rome.
Wow. So I'm excited. I'm actually going to be in Italy next month.
Oh, wonderful. Well, you'll have to check it out. Even if it's for a drink by the pool, it is worth it.
Yes. No, it sounds absolutely gorgeous. And do you think it's been tougher as a woman to succeed to date in the luxury industry? What's your take on that in America?
I think I'm in a very fortunate position. I wouldn't be answering this question the same way if I didn't work for Hilton, who is constantly ranked as one of the best places for women to work. So I would say I'm in a really particularly lucky position that I have incredible mentors and bosses who have families, who have children, who have husbands or partners, and they spend time away from the office, and that's perfectly acceptable. So I would say I'm in a unique place. Everybody else I can't speak for everybody, that everybody has this experience. And I think it's inspiring, and they've paved the way for me. I'm lucky. I'm not the trailblazer. I think it's my duty, my generation's duty, to make sure that we don't ruin it. We don't mess it up. We continue to trailblaze, but I'm fortunate to have had those really strong female leaders ahead of me set the standard.
Fantastic. And look, we ask everyone that we speak to. I could speak to you all day, and I think you're going to have to come on again because there's so many questions we didn't get to cover. But for today, where to from here for you, Cara?
So I mentioned I had Italy planned for next month. It's going to be rescheduled. So my next lineup, I'll be in the Hamptons over the summer, which is just a nice, amazing getaway to escape the city. In October, I'm going to Israel and Cyprus, which will be really fun. I'll be there for a wedding for family. And then, like I said, I'm excited to go to Italy next year. I cannot wait. It's the country only gets better and better. So that's really, my eyes are set a little further out for that, but for that as well.
Well, look, it sounds absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for your time, for coming on the show. The time zones aren't easy between New York and Asia, but it's an absolute pleasure to speak to you. And I'd love to have you on the show another time to cover a lot of the other questions that we didn't get to this time.
I would love that, Renae. Thank you so much. And thank
Awesome.
you everybody for tuning in. It was a pleasure.
Thanks so much, Cara. Take care.
Don't forget to subscribe here and follow us on Instagram and Facebook for regular travel updates. You can also hear our episodes on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.